second device was discovered at the DNC, while Vice President-elect Kamala Harris was inside the building. The Vice President-elect came within feet of the device, which, if detonated, could have caused serious bodily harm. Over the span of the afternoon, more than 30 different vehicles and numerous civilians breached what should have been a secure perimeter.
We need to make sure that officers are posted.
Are you going to allow for us to extend our time?
Well, as you know, under the rules, the chairman has full discretion over the management of time.
That's not accurate.
All right, tell me why it's not accurate. I don't think so. I think I win that case.
I have no idea what any of this has to do with the hearing in question.
We're not here to, as Ms. Torres say, Monday morning quarterback. There is no time to Monday morning quarterback.
Would it not be the actual handler who should have noticed it, not just relying on the dog?
Yes, when you have a canine team, it's a team for a reason.
We're not trying to point fingers at the dog for not doing his job. Here are the facts. At approximately 12:42 p.m., the United States Capitol Police received reports of an explosive device found next to the RNC. At roughly 1:05 p.m., a second device was discovered at the DNC, while Vice President-elect Kamala Harris was inside the building. The Vice President-elect came within feet of the device, which, if detonated, could have caused serious bodily harm. CCTV footage indicates the devices were planted the night before by an individual carrying a backpack and wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt, a mask, gloves, glasses, and a pair of Nike Air Max Speed Turf sneakers. Despite the suspect's appearance on numerous U.S. Capitol Police CCTV cameras and the FBI's efforts interviewing over 800 individuals and assessing more than 300 tips, the suspect still remains at large. Unfortunately, the FBI has failed to provide substantive updates on the investigation despite numerous requests from congressional committees. Today, they have declined to participate in our hearing. One of the questions the subcommittee is interested in, as part of our oversight responsibilities, is the law enforcement response after the devices were discovered, specifically setting and maintaining a secure perimeter around those devices. At roughly 12:42 p.m., the first device was discovered near the RNC. At approximately 1:21 p.m., two civilians walked south on 1st Street, past the RNC, and entered the Capitol South Metro Station directly across from the alley where the first device was discovered. U.S. Capitol Police security footage shows no police presence at 1st and C Street to prevent pedestrian traffic from walking directly into the safe perimeter. Approximately 1 minute later, a U.S. Capitol Police officer makes the following broadcast over the radio. Can we please play that tape?
Traffic 1. Traffic 1. Sir, I have people walking down 1st Street right in front of the Republican Club. Somebody's not doing their job.
Assistant Chief Gallagher, you can clearly see in the video a roll of yellow police tape on top of a sidewalk post at 1st and C Street, which indicates that there's already been the response and at least a presence there. Should a safe perimeter have been established at 1st and C Street by 1:21 p.m.?
Thank you, Chairman. So for incidents of this nature, the first officer on the scene will be setting up incident command and a command post. And part of that procedure is to identify a perimeter and set a perimeter for a safe distance away from a potential hazard. So yes, there should have been a perimeter officer at that location. I'd like to clarify, as these incidents are ongoing, we are at 121, we're dealing with breaches on the east front and the west front of the Capitol as well. So our manpower is very succinct in where these officers were assigned and stuff. And any officers that come to help set up a perimeter are coming from another area. We don't have just response teams, you know, waiting around to help set up perimeters. So there could have been a delay with getting there.
All right, thank you. Mr. Dennis, in your opinion, from watching that video, was there a safe perimeter at the RNC?
From looking at the video, it's hard to tell exactly
the perimeter, not being too familiar with the area, but back what the assistant chief just said is setting up a good perimeter like that for the safe distances for the bomb squad to act. It's hard to tell if it was actually done or not.
Okay. But there's, in your opinion, there should have been something.
Could have been, yes, correct.
Over the span of the afternoon, more than 30 different vehicles and numerous civilians breached what should have been a secure perimeter. The following video shows examples of the perimeter being breached at various points in the afternoon, both before and after the disruption of the device. This is once the bomb squad did their job, disrupted the device, we had instances before and after. Let's go ahead and play this tape. And again, this is a montage of
7A had in priority.
207, go ahead.
We have vehicles that are driving right past the package and coming up. We need to make sure that officers are posted right now just above Canal and Washington in order to ensure nobody walks past this package.
That was where the package was by the park bench there. For example, at 2:01 p.m., a U.S. Capitol police officer incorrectly announced fire in the hole at the RNC when they meant to say DNC. At 2:05, the officer corrects their mistake and says, fire in the hole at the DNC. Mr. Black, what does the term fire in the hole mean?
Generally, the term fire in the hole would be indicative of an explosion is about to happen. It's a range term. When we're about to detonate a charge on an explosives range, that term fire in the hole would mean the explosion is going to occur.
In other words, look out, clear the area.
Yes.
All right. At nearly the same time at the DNC, an unmarked police car drives next to the robot as it prepares to disrupt the bomb. Mr. Dennis, is it safe for a vehicle to drive within feet of a device, whether it's viable or not, after fire in the hole has been called?
That would be negative.
I'm sorry?
It wouldn't be appropriate.
It would not be appropriate. No. Mr. Dennis, should any civilian or law enforcement officer be allowed within close proximity of the device, viable or not, once fire in the hole has been called?
No.
Okay, thank you. As you can see from the montage, there were several, both law enforcement and civilians in the area, even one, whether it was plainclothes police officer or civilian walking by and looking at the robot while it was there. It seems to be that, based on what you're telling us, that is highly inappropriate and potentially deadly. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Next, I'd like to discuss law enforcement's failure to discover the devices. On the morning of January 6th, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris arrived at the DNC through the garage entrance. Prior to her arrival, the Secret Service conducted a security sweep of the building and its exterior. Based on records obtained by the subcommittee, the Secret Service used 2 uniformed division K-9 units and more than 10 Secret Service agents to conduct this sweep. Let me just say before we roll this tape, we're showing all of these videos during my time in the beginning to save time later, so others may have questions based off of these videos. So this is just not for this line of questioning. Let's go ahead and roll this tape of the security sweep. It is a still picture of the building on the right, just for clarity of where the device is. At 9:28 a.m., a Secret Service handler and the bomb dog conducted a sweep of the garage outside the DNC. At one point in the video, the handler allows the dog to inspect an area directly behind the device. As the handler begins to pull away, his leash tightens, causing him to lose balance. Let's just look at that portion again for clarity. It's at this point when he goes down and turns to the right. You can see his leg kick out a little bit.
Whose leg were we looking for?
Right there, of the actual officer. Thank you. Mr. Keim, what is your assessment of the effectiveness of
Mr. Chair, may I
yes.
just ask a question? I think we're probably about 10 minutes into your 5 minutes.
We're about to wrap it up. We're taking the additional time so we can save time later so we don't have to replay the videos. So it's going to take a little additional time.
Okay.
We'll be moving on very quickly. Mr. Keim, what's your assessment of these sweeps in the video?
It appears to me that the canine handler, the canine team, is doing an open sweep where the dog's out in front of him and he's letting the dog dictate where he wants to go. Unfortunately, the dog goes out of the screen whenever the handler has his left leg and left arm go up. And it could be one of two things. The dog had some type of change of behavior out of our view, or the handler had a change of behavior and the handler's trying to allow that dog by giving him that extra lead. And that's usually what happens is your foot goes up, your hand goes up, and you're trying to leave. You don't want to put any unneeded pressure on the dog, meaning pulling on the lead and causing the dog to move. Depending on how well trained the dog is and the handler is, to me it appears he's trying to give him a little bit more lead because he's had some type of change of behavior. Unfortunately, we can't see what that change of behavior is, and it looks like the dog decides he's going to leave that area. Could he be an odor? He could have had some kind of change of behavior, but
Which could have been an alert?
it could have been. Alert would be a final response, like a sit would be an alert on a package, but that would be a change of behavior. And the handler wanted to give him the time to make a decision. Is he going to go? From what I understand, there's a wall there. And, you know, it's hard to tell whether the dog gets an alert or how that air is moving, but the dog decided to leave it and walk away from it. So.
And this is the video of the U.S. Capitol Police controlled disruption of the device. The robot arm is in the bottom left of the screen, if you watch it there. With this, one quick question. Mr. Dennis, if the device is successfully disrupted, what do you expect to see?
Once a device is disrupted, in this case, looks like a galvanized type pipe bomb in there, you would have the end cap. If that's what they targeted was the end cap, but take the end cap off, which is usually what bomb technicians will do. You'll see the end cap somewhere within the location of the shot that they placed. Potentially any of the residue or anything that's inside the actual pipe itself may have came out at that time. Anything else that's exterior that was maybe attached to the pipe could also be laying there in the immediate area.
Okay. Nothing unusual that you see in that?
No, nothing.
Okay, thank you. Now recognize Ms. Torres for 5 minutes.
Before the clock begins, I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Given that you take in close to 15 minutes, and between all of you, you have 25, 30 minutes in addition to the 15 minutes. There's two of us, we have 10 minutes. Are you going to allow for us to extend our time?
Well, as you know, under the rules, the chairman has full discretion over the management of time, and as I explained, we wanted to make sure to get the videos up front. If we would have done the videos or any other audio, it would have been taken out of the other members' time. So what I would ask, and I will be flexible, is to try to stay within a reasonable time. With asking your questions, and if needed to be, then we can do an additional round of questioning as well. But we have so many people and other committees going on, we do want to be timely going forward.
Okay, Chairman, I'm going to put this on you because you are the chairman of this committee, that you're refusing to be honest and upfront with the minority as to what exactly are we going to hear, or what is the purpose of the meeting, and second guessing our law enforcement officers, 3 years after the incident, seems to me like a very, very cheap shot. It's like spitting in their face after they gave up so much. So many of them had major injuries that were suffered under the violence of this angry mob that was unleashed on the U.S. Capitol.
Just for clarification based on the ranking member's comments, we're not here to discuss the investigation of the FBI. That I totally agree with Mr. Black and what he is stating. In fact, this hearing was noticed to the minority and the public over a week ago with a description of what we would be discussing here today, which is not a partisan finger pointing, but trying to get to the bottom of what may have gone right, what may have gone wrong, and how we can improve the security of members of both parties here. And as a courtesy to the minority, the videos that we played here today were sent to the minority yesterday for review, so it shouldn't have been a surprise.
You said in your testimony, and I quote, it is my understanding that both of these devices were fully functional and viable pipe bombs. However, it is unclear whether they would have gone off on their own had they not been rendered safe by our bomb squad. How did you form that opinion that it's unclear they would not have gone off on their own?
Yes, sir. That the viability and functionality of the bombs, of the pipe bombs that were placed at the Republican National Committee and the Democratic National Committee, those statements come from our trained bomb techs, highly trained, highly capable bomb techs, that when they were presented with a picture of the device on scene, they didn't have all the context of when the devices were planted, how long they had already been sitting there. They were looking at a picture of a pipe bomb to them, which comprised of all the components. They didn't know, obviously, what was inside it.
Well, what made you think it wouldn't go off?
Based on the bomb tech's experience and
Okay,
training.
that's all I need to know. I appreciate that. Now, we've already gone over that the perimeter wasn't secured. But the Vice President-elect of the United States is inside one of the buildings, and there's a 25-minute delay before anybody goes over and says, y'all might want to shelter in place. That's not acceptable, is it?
That's not accurate.
All right, tell me why it's not accurate.
Yes. When the initial call came out, our counter-surveillance agents found the pipe bomb. They immediately went up and alerted the 2 law enforcement agencies that were at the DNC, which was the U.S. Secret Service and Metropolitan Police Department. Then those counter-surveillance agents moved over to do exactly what they were trained to do, which was go establish an incident command post.
Well, why does your testimony say that they were told to shelter in place at 1:30? Because in the meantime, instead of sheltering in place, the Vice President-elect of the United States leaves and driving past the pipe bomb that was viable, according to evidence.
That is correct. And the time frame between when we set up our incident command post and when the shelter in place was, there was also teams, not U.S. Capitol Police, that were telling the DNC to evacuate as well. And that's why you had the evacuation of the protectee and others.
All right, so there was cross communications. Here's what a good criminal defense attorney is going to say. You tell me if you don't think this sounds reasonable from a defense attorney standpoint. You saw if they identify the individual that placed what is believed to be the bomb, hours go by, and you had a search by the Secret Service at DNC, and the dog didn't light on an explosive. So clearly the device that my client might have left there wasn't the device that was later determined to be the pipe bomb, because it wasn't picked up by the bomb sniffing dog. Doesn't that sound like what's going to happen if they ever do identify the guy in the video?
It may be a good question, but I believe it's flawed in its logic.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think I win that case. I yield back.
Just, I'll ask this rhetorically. I'm not sure what the poster behind you, Mr. Chair, is. What does Donald Trump, fraud, Hutchinson, conspiracy, stolen, Meadows? I have no idea what any of this has to do with the hearing in question, which is about the pipe bomb. Yeah,
this was just as part of the opening statement, as illustrative that the Select Committee, who was tasked with investigating this 2 years ago, only mentioned the pipe bomb 5 times. They mentioned that the size and the font of these words are how many times those particular words were used in that investigation, is to show the point that no one has taken a real look at this until this committee, which has pure oversight over this. As regarding the FBI was invited because they conducted the post-incident investigation of the device itself.
Okay.
Reel back.
All right. The fact that the poster's there, I think, signifies other things, but I'll leave you to your answer. The question from the gentleman earlier was about the failure of the K-9 unit to discover the bomb. Are the dogs infallible? Do they ever miss something? I mean, is it likely that they would have missed, or is there something, would you necessarily conclude that the bomb wasn't there during the sweep, as the gentleman did, and that it was placed somehow afterward?
No, dogs are dogs. Sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're having a bad day. There's several reasons a dog could miss an explosive.
So is it, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but is it possible then, in your judgment, that the dog simply missed it, that it could have been there during the time of the sweep and the dog just didn't pick it up? Is that possible?
Yeah, anything's possible. We don't have a video of the actual sweep around the explosive device. I would say, as a team, you know, you follow a pattern when you're doing a sweep. Once you've completed your sweep, you know, it's done, it's no longer secure. From what I've seen from the stills of the pipe bomb, if I'm doing a sweep with my canine and I come across a park bench with that sitting underneath it, I'm not putting my dog on it, right? I might not even try to get him into the cone, which is, you know, the odor, depending on which way the wind's blowing. Because once I see that, that becomes a very suspicious package. And if you really want to upset an EOD unit, go ahead and tell them you cleared that using your canine, right? That's just not again. You're literally stepping away from that as far as you can, securing the perimeter, making that perimeter incredibly large, and let EOD decide how much they're going to shrink it from that point on.
Who is responsible for the command and control of the DNC pipe scene?
The U.S. Capitol Police had the incident command, and our bomb squad was the lead bomb squad for the DNC scene.
Okay. And that bomb squad would have, that dog would be a bomb sniffing dog?
The dog that was at the scene was a U.S. Secret Service canine.
And what does that mean?
It is one of their bomb sniffing dogs.
Okay,
yes.
all right. There were over 30 vehicles and a pedestrian allowed to enter the active crime scene, and I thought that's been gone before. I'm not a police officer or anything, but I would assume that would be anathema to what a crime scene should have. Is that fair?
That's fair.
I really want to get into this camera issue. Facing the DNC garage began to zoom in on the position of that pipe bomb. Approximately 1:40 p.m., the same camera was turned away and faced south on South Capitol Street, and a second camera on the west side of the DNC was also turned away at 2:20 p.m. Both times, neither of the cameras were turned back. Do you have any idea why the cameras were moved? Who did it?
So that would be speculation on my part as to who was working the cameras there. We have trained command center specialists who are the ones that operate our USCP cameras. The cameras with...
Would there not be a time log of who would be working those at this specific time?
There would. I don't have that with me.
Okay.
With regards to our cameras at the DNC, I'm aware of the speculation of moving some of the cameras. There were 3 cameras that capture various aspects of the DNC. The 2 that you mentioned, one does move, and I don't have the camera number off the top of my head, but
Sure.
one does move away from the DNC, and it goes up by the U.S. Capitol Power Plant where the incident command post was. So when you start to see it zoom in, it's zooming in on our U.S. Capitol Police command post location, which is typical for a command center operator to zoom in on the command post. The second camera that you mentioned that moves, that starts to move, it captures certain areas of the DNC, and then it looks like it starts to move to check on street closures and various other aspects of the response. There is one camera that captures the entirety of the scene at the DNC. That captures where the pipe bomb was located, the evacuation of the protectee that was there, the canine, our counter surveillance agent that finds the pipe bomb, and continues unmoved and catches the robot coming down as well as the disruption. So we do have, a camera that takes the whole complexity of that scene. I think it's important to note too, we have 1,800 cameras on the Capitol complex. On that day, we probably had
But these are manually moved, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so somebody had to move it away from that, correct?
Yes, sir. As to why, speculation as to why those cameras would not have been moved back, because we probably had 2 or 3 camera operators in our command center, and they're also dealing with the scene at the RNC and all of the breaches at the U.S. Capitol as well.
Did the failure to establish an incident command lead to subsequent breaches of the perimeter?
I would say the lack of resources and officers between not only U.S. Capitol Police, Metropolitan Police, it was their primary jurisdiction as well, to be able to secure that perimeter is what caused people and vehicles to traverse it.
Okay. So lastly, I just want to comment on Ms. Torres's remarks in the beginning, that we're here to point the finger. We serve a purpose here in House administration, and that is to provide oversight to the Capitol Police. And it is also our job to provide the resources, the training, and everything necessary so that you can do the job that you're supposed to do. And you made a comment, Chief, and your quote, that you and the department has, or specifically you, not shied away from the failures of that day. If that doesn't mark the remarks of a true leader, I'm not sure what does, and I would serve under your command any day. And I think it is our job to make sure that those failures, and that's what we're here. That's what we're here to do. We're not here to point fingers. We're not here to talk about defunding the police. We're not here to, as Ms. Torres say, Monday morning quarterback. There is no time to Monday morning quarterback any incidents that police officers have, and until they wear the gun belt, until they pin that shield on their chest, they have no idea what law enforcement officers do every day. But it is our job, as part of this committee, again, to provide you everything that you need.
We were talking about the U.S. Secret Service and the dogs. I want to make sure you understand what your response was, that it's not the dog's responsibility to identify the device, but the handler. So the fact that the device was seen and close by, would it not be the actual handler who should have noticed it, not just relying on the dog?
Yes, when you have a canine team, it's a team for a reason. You got the dog and the handler. The handler's looking for areas, anything to put the dog on, to use the advantage of the dog, right? Dogs have a 40% stronger sense of smell than we do. So the dog's purpose is to find that we can't see. The handler's position is to locate the areas to put. As you're doing a pattern search and you see that, you wouldn't even put your dog on that, on an explosive pipe or any suspicious package. Okay. You would back off.
Okay, thank you. I just felt that was important for clarification, as we're not trying to point fingers at the dog for not doing his job, but to get a better understanding of how this works. Without objection, this subcommittee stands adjourned.